Today we got Jerry in the house. Lenny LaRocca, nice to see you, brother. Tony, what's up, man? Heard about your closing coming up, way to go. As I mentioned, you can only grow to the proportion that your systems will allow you to. The other thing that's true is that thousandaires think work, millionaires think in systems.
I had an agent shadow me yesterday and she was like, I noticed that your phone's not ringing. It's designed to be that way.
Initially, I was very mad at you because I couldn't get a hold of you on one of your listings. Then I followed you online out of hate. Then I listened to what you were saying and I was like, holy smokes, this is good. I came to 2 more events and now he's partnered with us with EXP. So without systems, you just have a job. That's what we're about here at Lead Builders. We only bring people to you that are world class at what they do. You're looking at the Michael Jordan and the Kobe Bryant of systems. Once you see this, you cannot unsee it.
So I have seen these problems and now we have solutions.
Let's go. Let me see the attendees. Carolina, Chris Camacho. How you doing today, Jose? You doing all right? You looking good with that beard, bro.
It took me a full year to grow it. I'm kidding.
Pretty uniformly across the board, systems is something that, agents really have a challenge with, right? They have a tendency to focus primarily on, generating the business, income generation activities. But I'm also aware that you can only grow to the proportion that your systems will allow you to. In preparation for our time together, I was really thinking this morning about the stages that are involved in selling real estate in high volume, because it is stages. And the first stage is, I need business. I always used to love to be in rooms where they'd be like, let's talk about systems. I'm like, nobody has any business, so let's talk about that. So there's stages. First, we need deals. And we go through this process of ramping up the learning curve to learn what to say and how to say it and how to prospect and get those clients. The second stage is creating systems, processes, and procedures that will allow you to continue to grow and scale. So if you're an agent, and what I see frequently in kind of coaching and consulting agents across the country is where agents plateau at a certain level of production, it's usually because they're lacking a system. And it's usually because they are doing income servicing activities and not income producing activities. And it's usually because they don't have the right person on their team to delegate to, right? To be able to do those things for you. And as I mentioned, you can only grow to the proportion that your systems will allow you to. The other thing that's true is that thousandaires think work, millionaires think in systems. I'm going to say that again, not because you didn't hear me, but because it's true. Thousandaires think in working time, millionaires think in systems. So it is really like our privilege and pleasure to bring to you the absolute best in the business as it pertains to systems. So Kathleen and her team have been assisting agents throughout the country. Top producing agents and teams systematize, create SOPs, which a year and a half ago, I didn't even know what that term meant, standard operating procedures, and hiring as well, staff members to be able to scale and continue to do business in high volume. And I'm also aware is during a time where, there's been a little downshift in the marketplace, volumes down 30% year over year. This is an absolutely amazing time to get systems in place, because for those of us that have been in this business for a while, that once those interest rates come down, it rises all ships. And you don't want to be in a situation where you start doing a bunch more deals and you don't have any systems, and then your life, becomes a frantic, hurried, and ridiculous kind of challenge and mess, right? You don't want to be a public success and a private mess. And the systems will allow you to prevent that from happening. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kathleen and Dr. Laura Sims. So they're going to share with you, their systems magic and how they can help and be of assistance.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Jose. Laura and I are excited to be with all of you because this is our jam and we are totally dedicated to your success and your success with ease as well as profitability. So this is my 11th year in this business, and it has morphed into a number of different varieties, but Cambium is the brand that we took on this year. And this is my 21st year in the real estate industry. As Aaron put in my intro, I started as an assistant to a top producer in San Francisco, and then I became an agent in the city. And when I moved 16 years ago from San Francisco to Vermont to live near my family, I ended up working for one of the top real estate coaches in the country. And in listening to her coach all of these top producers, I heard this problem over and over again, that you cannot reach your goals and your potential if you do not have good systems and proper leverage. And so that was the inspiration to start this journey, to be able to bring solutions, because this is my second career. I started in the retail industry in recruiting and training, which explains the highlights in my hair. Right. But all that wisdom is to your benefit. So I have seen these problems and now we have solutions. And so Dr. Laura Sims and I have been working together 7 years and counting. And Laura is trained as a professor. So instructional design is part of the backbone of where she comes from. But now, having worked with over 50 teams in systems documentation, plus the hundreds of teams that we service all the time with our coaching, training, and courses, we're able to really be able to spread the wealth between what are all the best tips and tricks, that so we can really cut through a lot of that to get to here's the secret sauce that we know, and then we add your secret sauce so that the systems are always yours, but you don't have to actually create them.
And we believe this is the future of real estate teamwork, right? So a traditional model is being challenged, and rightly so. And we're seeing that really we need a revolution in the real estate industry in terms of how we think about systems and operational support as a partner to sales, in order to really see businesses get to the next level and thrive in any market.
Yeah, so we're really going to challenge the status quo. And we named the company Cambium. We've spelled it differently, but Cambium, for those of you that love nature and all things organic, is the layer underneath the bark of a tree that provides the tree with oxygen and nutrients so it can grow and thrive throughout its lifetime. And we know that what we do in operations and systems is underneath. It is the infrastructure of your business, which allows you to be able to scale, achieve, and have a life worth living at the level of achievement that you're after. And so with that, we then have our own vision and mission of what are we doing for teams, is to really help create real estate businesses so everyone thrives at work and in their lives. And we'll talk as we go along here about someone that's near and dear to Erin's heart, which is also someone that is near and dear to my heart. I'm just getting to know him better, which is Lars Hedenborg from Real Estate B School, because he sings the song that I have been singing as well all these years, which is you really want to be able to create a life that doesn't destroy your family and your health. And so hence the vision for us to work with you. And the mission then is to support the teams to establish effective workflow, hire talent, train team members to perform at their best through great coaching and having good systems documentation.
That's right. Drop in the chat, guys, a hands up or a thumbs up if you're interested in not just having a thriving business, but also having a life and not working 70 to 80 hours a week. Who's up for that? Say aye. Drop in the chat. Let me see it.
Yes. Right. And that's possible, right, with systems. And so as your tree grows, trees always need oxygen, sunlight, water. You will always need to nurture your business and nurture your life, particularly if you believe that you are a lifelong learner. Are you someone who always wants to keep peeling away the layers of the onion, taking off the shields of protection you put on to get this far, and now actually live an authentic life that brings value everywhere you go? So having operations and systems as you're just beginning to really bud in your business, having great hiring and training as you're beginning to build a team and have people you can count on. And then what is that support you want for the lifetime of the business and your own lifetime so that everyone on the team in the organization is thriving and getting satisfaction out of the work that they're doing.
And we've seen that these transformations through our working with Kathleen's been in business for she's in her 11th year of this business. And so we're able to see what it's like for people, business owners, to go from single agent with an admin, then adding in their admin, training them and taking it to the next level in terms of what's possible. And so we've been able to walk along them in that journey of growth. And so then we bring that expertise and lessons we've learned with them along the way so that you don't have to, kind of reinvent that wheel.
Yes. And so that you're the salesperson, you are building and have built your skills, but to the level now where this becomes important, even more so than it was as a brand new agent. What would it be like if brand new agents were actually taught about having systems, right? So that's a deeper part of our extended mission, that we can make that difference too. But the commodity in here that is finite is time. So when Erin and I talked about this webinar of doubling your deals with systems, it really comes down to the possibilities of what you can achieve are ever expanding. The finite resource is time. The hours in a day and the hours and minutes in a life, the years in a life, and really having that be something spectacular. So now what you're looking at is all the skill and the habits that you've been building as an agent over the years. Where do you want to spend your time? What is the highest return on investment for that time? And where are you going to flip the hourglass and begin to save time in order to spend it in ways that is the most impactful to you, your family, and your life?
Yeah, and the way that like I perceive this is it has to do with margin. And
Okay.
I think in just in our business in general, but just in society in general, I think there's a chronic lack of margin. And we forget that we have these other transcendental needs that we have, like emotional needs, like relationship needs, like physical needs, like mental health needs.
Yes.
And if we don't have margin with time, energy, and money, then what happens is those things get pushed to the side and pushed out. And then you end up with burnout and things of that nature. So what Kathleen is sharing with you guys is a way to create margin in your life for relationships, for your health, for your significant other, for the community and things of that nature. So pay attention and listen very closely to what she's saying.
Thank you, Erin. And so in this use of time, depending on how you started as an agent and where you are on your growth journey, there is often an assumption with agents that everything is a part of what the agent does. That everything is the rope, that you're the rope. So we just want to make sure you don't hang yourself with this thing. You want to be able to use the rope to your advantage, but the rope is made up of different fibers that all put together are the strength of the rope. But in the beginning of a career, you're doing everything, right? You're the chief cook, bottle washer, and you might have a transaction coordinator or someone who helps you do compliance for contracts. But otherwise, there are separations in the tasks, in the kinds of responsibilities in the business that you're living in, the business that you're building and growing. And it doesn't really matter. You don't have to sell 200 houses a year to need this separation between sales and operations. You can do 24 deals a year. You can do 18, depending on what the price points are and where you are. The volume is really a very personal choice, but this strategy and this application is really about what is the quality of life and the quality of business that you want to run. Because it's also with the intention that you're not necessarily the same level of good at everything. Right? You're allowed to specialize. You're allowed to have a zone of genius. So let's look at what that looks like when you are separating the fibers of the rope. So we have a toolkit for you of checklists for sellers and sellers and buyers. As a gift for staying and being on the webinar with us. And so this is a snapshot of beginning to think about, there are things agents do, listing coordinators, a real estate assistant, a transaction coordinator. The column titles can be different. It can say my brother, my wife, and my kids. It can be separated in lots of different ways. But the idea is that you really start thinking about, what am I going to do? And then what am I going to set up a system for that is going to have accountability and transparency, so that people have a role. They have what Laura calls a swim lane. And that they're able to really keep track of that as well. So Laura, tell them a little bit about how you get to this point with people, with the clients that we work with.
So this really nails down and provides a lot of clarity on what has to happen in the workflow as you're delivering the service to your buyers and sellers that you promised them in converting them. And so here we detail basically every step that has to happen, every task. So that's the what. And then the swim lanes, the columns on the right, are the who. So who is responsible for taking care of that? And so again, right now it might be you, but if it's only ever you, after a while, you'll reach capacity or burnout and, or, all of the, you certainly won't reach any level of freedom in your business or your life. And so here we really get clear on, who's going to take care of that. And when we talk about having a system like this, it's really just any kind of method or process. It doesn't have to be sophisticated. This doesn't have to live in Trello or Asana or any kind of, tech tool or tech platform. It's really just about having a method or a framework for how you're going to do business together. And so Brene Brown says, clear is kind. And so we found this is one of the clearest, kindest ways of really laying out what has to happen and who's responsible for it. So that takes care of clarity. It's also accountability. And so we know who is responsible, who can take ownership. We really try not to have a checkbox and multiple columns. Certainly multiple people on the team could do it. And most often multiple people should know how to do it, for cross-training purposes. But if you have that checkbox and multiple columns, then it becomes a little bit of hot potato, right? Like, oh, I thought you were doing that. You're taking care of that. So the only way to have true ownership is to have that responsibility laid out very clearly that this is my task. I can delegate it. I can hand it off, but I'm the one responsible for getting it done. And so then third, the transparency, it elevates your conversation on your team, right? Instead of just what got done. Did that get done? Did that happen? Did that not happen? Who's going to do it? Who's not going to do it? Instead, It's about why didn't that get done? Right? So you go through your checklist, you see it's not checked off. What happened? What do you need in order to get that accomplished? And so it really becomes an effective tool, again, in a Google Doc, on paper, if that's the way you feel most comfortable, nothing sophisticated. And certainly at the beginning of your business, it shouldn't be complicated and techie. It should.
Laura, what's paper?
I know. Some are still in it.
I told Kathleen, don't make me say paper's okay, but it is, because if that's what you're going to use, the best.
Hey, Kathleen's being nice, guys. Paper's not okay. It's for bums. Don't use it.
I was like, please don't make me say it. No, but the best CRM is the one you use. The best checklist is the one that you and your team are actually implementing. You go through the process of figuring out what do we do, who's going to do it, and then you use it every single time. And then you can refine it, and then you can put it anywhere you want. But as long as you put it on paper, that's really an element to success at any level of your business.
Yes. And so being able to, so part of our motto is we meet you where you are. So it's okay if you're a successful hot mess. It's okay. Look how successful you are being a hot mess. But if you don't
drop in the comments if you're a successful hot mess right now.
Yeah, man. There's thousands
put a
of
hands
you.
up, thumbs up if you're a successful hot mess.
There are
and
thousands.
imagine where you can go. If you're successful as a hot mess, imagine what's possible with being a systematized success.
Yes. And so, this is the hot mess for those of you that remember seeing the historical clip, right? That you need to wrap your chocolates, man. But if you can't get your system right, you're going to have them in your pockets, melted on the floor, and you're going to have to eat them all. And this is really a wasted resource. So then what is it, right, that you need to be able to set up or allow others to help you set up? Because what do you want to keep? What do you love most about what you do? And then be able to also start to trust that the system will work, start to trust that other people are good at what they do that's different than what you do, and that you can trust that the results will happen and that you will work on it together, and that you can have coaches and training right along the way.
Well, and I'm curious, Kathleen, maybe you can speak a little bit about that, where I've noticed that I just had a coaching call with a gentleman who's doing like 70 transactions a year. He has people in place, but he's still not letting go completely. I told him he's like in a helicopter, like watching over everybody. Mm-hmm. And I also told him, which he didn't like, I was like, I'm like, what do you think the problem is? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, I know what it is. He's like, what? I'm like, you're not patient. And you're playing whack-a-mole with everything. As soon as something comes up, you feel like you got to answer the email right away. You got to do this right away. And he's putting that under the guise of service. And I'm like, no. What's underneath that is fear. You're afraid that if it doesn't get done instantaneously, then something bad's going to happen. So maybe like just a little bit, because you're going to give them all of the systems, processes, and procedures, you'll hand it all to them, but there's also an emotional component, and delegation is a skill, and being able to trust people and also being patient. Like, okay, it's going to get done. It may not get done like instantaneously, but it'll get done when somebody gets to it on the checklist.
Yes. And so this is an important pivot at some point in your business. And I would also profess in your life that you begin to realize that you can count on the system and the people with everyone being focused. And then you can set up controls. And so part of that is the control that you think you can do it better, that you are afraid it won't get done or won't get done on time or the way you like it. But also, Erin, what's sometimes underneath that fear is the ego that you're going to look bad, that someone's mistake means that you're not a good agent or that you don't run a good business. And that ego must move aside.
Mm-hmm. I love
because
that.
it is in the freedom and in the allowance, in the acceptance that everyone is human. They're going to stay human. But we can have great systems with wonderful intention and excellent follow through. And then when it doesn't go well, we also have the humility skill to be able to say to clients or vendors and say, I'm so sorry, that didn't go as I had planned. I'm going to fix that today. And then that will not happen again. Is there anything else that I can do for you? And people go, well, I'm still pissed off, but okay. And thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And
we still talk nice about you at the dinner table.
They do. So what I want everybody to write down if you're taking notes is your ego is not your amigo. It gets in the way, right? The other thing that I'm aware of is like as you elevate, you have to delegate to elevate. Write that down as well. Delegate to elevate. You have to elevate into higher level things by delegating. And leaders understand that plan A isn't always the plan we go with. We do it, and then we realize, oh shit, that didn't work. And then you iterate and you make it better and you keep moving. So that's wonderful guidance.
Yes. Yeah. And when you have great talent, you can also invite the talent to help you design how it would work better because they're actually potentially better at it than you are.
That's right. Love that.
Laura?
One thing Kathleen taught me that's been really helpful in growing my team of consultants is that I'm not responsible for the results of my team members. I'm responsible for getting them what they need in order to succeed. So the vision, the training, the quality control, the feedback, all of that. But those are separate people outside my zone of what I can control. And so, if you're intentional in the hiring process and you identify talent and you let talent do its thing and, give them the necessary structures, then you don't have to worry about exactly what they're producing because they're always going to come back and want to do it better. And so it doesn't have to be a reflection on you. And as you grow as a business, it isn't you anymore. It is the business, right? So going from like a personal brand or it's just a single agent into a company, into a business, then that also relieves a little bit. It's not you, it's your business.
Yeah, it's like not being responsible for the results, instead being responsible for the people that are responsible for the results.
Yeah, Simon Sinek. I can't take credit for that.
I was ready to give Kathleen credit, but it's brilliant either way.
And he might have gotten it from somewhere else too. We don't
probably did. There's no original thought, Kathleen. It's all
exactly.
We're all trading.
We're all borrowing. Yeah.
But I want to give an analogy that really helps me to see if this helps everybody. As an agent, sometimes in the beginning, or even as just an entrepreneur, it's like you're holding the box with all the things that need to be done, and you're handing out tickets or tags or cards and giving away tasks, but you're still holding what you think is all the responsibility. And I'm suggesting that you begin to shift into, you're going to hand out swim lanes to people, and then you're going to begin to step back as the coach, and people are going to swim the race with you, for you, but they own that swim lane. And then you're supporting, you're giving clarity, you're giving guidance, you have a dashboard, but they own those tasks and responsibilities. You're not asking people to do things for you.
Yeah, what it makes me think about is like there's two options. One is like a genius with a million minions, where you're sitting and you're constantly telling everybody what they need to do all the time.
It's on the menu.
Yeah. The second is where you have systems in place and processes and procedures, and people know what they're accountable for. And then you're overseeing vision, you're overseeing kind of numbers from a business perspective. You're using programs like CTE to see like, okay, what's the profit? What's this? What's that? So your responsibilities change. And I'm aware that it's a very difficult internal shift, like an internal evolution away from being responsible for the results to being responsible for the people that are responsible for the results. The other thing that comes up for me too, and I'm curious to see your input on it, is the other thing I've noticed is 65% of us, at least in the United States anyway, grew up with parents that lived paycheck to paycheck. And because of that, we were kind of indoctrinated with certain types of thinking, like money doesn't grow on
trees.
And a penny saved is a penny
Earned.
bullshit because it's a penny, and eat all the food on your
Plate.
So it's this idea and DIY mentality, like I'm going to do it myself and save money. And what I'm aware of is I heard somebody say this recently, and I thought it was so awesome. Like, if you don't create systems and if you don't pay $15, $20 an hour for an assistant, you're basically telling your family they're not worth that amount of money. Now, I want everybody on this call to have that sink in. Okay. So if you don't create systems, and if you aren't willing to pay somebody to help you run those systems, the 10 or 15 or 20 bucks an hour that it costs to do it.
And sometimes 30, 40, or $50 an hour, depends on where you live, but.
Yeah, it depends on where you live and depends on the level of talent. But if you're not willing to do that, you're basically telling your family they're not worth that amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where the time's coming from.
Yeah. And starting to recognize really that not everything is created equal in this process. There are $20 an hour tasks and there are $200 an hour tasks, and that you should be in your lane doing the tasks that have the highest return, and then paying everybody else to do those $15, $20 an hour tasks, because otherwise your time is not free. Sometimes as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we're used to just seeing ourselves as like an infinite resource that we can just take from our well, except that no, that has a cost. It has a cost that you should measure and be able to calculate so that you know exactly, okay, if I'm doing it, then I'm losing, $200 an hour that I could be doing prospecting. And so therefore it is a very smart investment to pay someone $20 an hour to do that task.
Correct. And like the way I describe it to people, it's like, because I know for agents, particularly ones that are prospecting on a regular basis, their time's worth $500, maybe even $1,000 on the phone, an hour.
Right.
Yep.
And meeting with
So
clients.
I was like, well, if you could, so in other words, let's say there was a stock that was valued, like because of, actual business metrics, not because people thought something was true, but it was actually true, like at $1,000, but it's now trading at like $500 a share. It's like, how much would you buy? As much as you could.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's happening is that if you are trading $500 an hour work for $20 an hour of work, that's not an effective trade. It's not a productive trade. You're basically like a super high paid assistant. But I understand, because there's an internal conflict where it's like, I need every penny, but that thing is the thing that causes you to not scale. Mm-hmm. Everybody on this call, I need you to understand something. As you give away pieces of the pie gets bigger. As you give away pieces of the pie gets bigger. Drop in the chat if you want a bigger pie. I do. Yay.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And then if we just go down that rabbit hole, one more step into an example, right? Depending on how you do your prospecting, but let's say you even reach 5 contacts in an hour, whether you're out in the community or you're on the phone or you're, calling expireds. And then every transaction takes 1 to 2 hours a day or a week, depending on what kind of system your brokerage has, which means you could have 5 to 10 hours a week, which means you could have 25 to 50 more contacts. But how many more appointments would that be, right? So if you get one appointment based on preferably, hopefully, every 50 contacts, but it might be 200 depending on what market you're in and who you're contacting, but then you're going to have more business just by shifting an hour a day or a week, depending on your compliance system, for being able to shift your time into something that is $200, $500 an hour activity.
That's exactly right. And then the other thing that I'm aware of as you were saying that is, if you don't do this, I want everybody on this call to understand. I want you to understand 2 things. One is the industry is moving where I think 20 years ago, you didn't have to understand technology or systems and you could be successful. Right. Guys, everybody on this call needs to hear me. That is not the case anymore. Like, period, end of story. You're competing with huge, very well funded, they have way more money than you'll ever have in your whole lifetime, technology companies that are pushing into our space, that understand CRMs, that understand lead conversion, that understand technology like very, very clearly. So this is not like an option. It's really not. The second thing I need you to understand is, if you don't do this, what you're going to end up with is a roller coaster. You'll end up with cash spurts, not cash flow. And your boy wants cash flow, baby. I don't want cash spurts. But most of you guys settle for cash spurts, because what happens is you do your deals, la, la, la. You talk to people, you go blah, blah, blah. You drive in your car and go blah, blah, blah. You get a contract signed and you go up the roller coaster. You're like, yeah, oh yeah. You post on Instagram. Oh, I took 3 listings. I took 4 listings. I'm the man. I'm the woman. Yay. And then what happens is you got to stop everything that you're doing because you don't have systems in place, because you are doing everything yourself. And then what happens? You go right down the roller coaster. Then everything closes and then you pick your head up and you're like, oh shit, I got to go back to work and got to go do more deals. So it's not negotiable for 2 reasons. One is the marketplace has changed. We have very sharp elbowed, very well-funded technology companies pushing into our space. So we have to understand CRMs because consumers are demanding instantaneous. They're demanding somebody pick up the phone when they call. You guys, listen to me. We live in a world where I can know on my phone where my Chipotle order is on its way to my house, and I can't figure out when the fucking closing is and who has the keys. Like, that's the world we live in, guys.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be like understanding of that and either outsource that skill to Kathleen and Laura, right? Where they have that skill of systems, processes, and procedures, or partner with somebody that has those skills, because they're not an option.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
that ties in perfectly with Lars Henneberg's book, Scale or Die, because he talks about the traditional model of attract, convert, deliver being one person is not sustainable. And it's also doesn't lead to, time, money, and location freedom. Right. And so it's like, you have to find a way to you can still be the one that attracts and converts, but you can outsource delivering.
yes.
At the level of quality that you desire, in order to be able to focus on the other 2 parts of the flow.
Yes. And so this is Lars's 6 different phases, and they're also kind of in 3 columns. We also talk about this in 3 stages. We refer to it as set up, level up, and optimize. And so that you can have set up and level up and optimize at different parts of your business. Like you can be really, really good at being at optimizing your buyer process, but now you've been in the business 2 or 3 years and now you're getting more listings. Yay, because that's the name of the game in the future, right? So now maybe you're in setup about your listing process. And then maybe you're in, you've now had a team member, you've had one assistant or a TC, but now you need to hire. So now you need like payroll and human resources. So maybe you're setting up your human resources function because now you're actually building an organization, a living thing, a living, breathing company. And so maybe you're there about that, but being able to have those stages and recognize that you're also allowed to take your time, you're allowed to build this at your own pace, and that it is completely normal that you go through these stages and that you are able to build these functions as you set up things, as you then level them up for greater efficiency, and that you also are always going to be able to optimize them, even as you stay in business, and maybe you stay at the same volume, but you're always going to want to optimize. So Laura, let's take people through what that looks like, right? So systems include these kind of components.
Yeah. So you think about the workflow being how you deliver that service to the clients, anything part of your listing and buyer process, like the checklist that we had shown a snapshot of, and that we'll give as part of the toolkit that has the whole workflow that takes from the appointment phase through post-close,
Yes.
so that everybody knows exactly what has to happen and who's responsible for it. Then obviously your database having some sort of way of tracking leads, communications with clients, and also follow-up. So this really manages those relationships so that you don't have it in your head as a system, because memory is not a system. And so if you're always trying to save brain space for when did I last talk to that person and what did we talk about, that bogs you down. It's like having too many tabs open in your browser. It doesn't free you up to build new relationships. And then business tracking, you're always going to need some way of knowing your numbers, getting that picture of the business, a snapshot of the business, really understanding what the business is trying to tell you about the decisions that you're making, because otherwise you're just making emotional decisions. You look in your bank account and you invest in things, and you're flush and you invest in things, or it's a slower time in the market. and you react out of fear. And so just having that long-term view of the real estate market is cyclical, like nature, cyclical. And so, we're somehow always surprised it's a new season, it's a new downturn. And yet if we have that long-term view and we know our numbers, then that puts us in a position to be able to make really informed strategic decisions, and then support. So that's going to change depending on the level that you're in. But this is not, you're not in whatever level you're at, you're not the first person to go through the process of getting support at that level. And so we know what that looks like, the different possibilities. We have job descriptions. We can help you draft your org chart, right? To know how, who is in what lane and what might they be responsible for so that you can hire to that role, right? So we can help you untangle that rope, because there are not an infinite number of ways in which you can untangle it, right? There are just certain options. Yeah, depending on your level.
There are tried and true ways of doing this. So then when you're in your setup phase, you're really moving from a job to a business. And here we also should mention, Erin, the masterclass that Carla did for your clients and our audience, our shared community of how do you set this up? And so if you want to use Follow Up Boss, and Gabriella on Erin's team will actually set up your Follow Up Boss for you if that's a software that you want to use. And so there are services and there is training available that's very specific. And if you also then want someone to walk along this with you to do this, then that's what we do. But you're really now making the mindset shift, and then you're putting in the systems and the habits to go from having a job to having a business. So now what do all businesses need, right? The E-Myth revisited to be able to do, what that is, to be able to set something up. And so these 4 components are always a part of what you're creating as an infrastructure.
Yes. And so if you're at the setup level, if this is something that it's just been you who's doing everything, it's all in your head, the first essential step is to get it out into checklists, right? And you can use our checklist as a template, or we also have the service of helping you customize them for your business. Mm-hmm. So we see that 80% of a real estate business is the same from one to another in terms of the essential things that need to happen. And then, of course, you have your secret sauce depending on what's important to you, your area. So there will always be a customization piece involved.
So let's repeat that. 80% of a real estate transaction is the same. We hear all the time, every deal is different. Not true at the level of core that you might be thinking. That 80% of it is the same steps. Yes, the seller and buyer are different. Yes, the title company. Yes, the terms and conditions. But the system of the business at its maximum, at its majority, is the same. So it's also helpful if you begin to accept that belief and that concept, because that makes the idea of having systems much easier to work with, because then it's just putting the icing on the top and the decoration on it. That's the secret sauce and what's unique about the situation, but the core of it is repetitive.
Yes, because we see so many people running around like their hair's on fire, like everything's is urgent, everything's an emergency. Whereas if you predict 80% of the transaction in advance and you plan for it and you have a systemized method in place for following that system, then when things come up, things go off, the inspection report comes back and there's a big fat mess or whatever, you have the margin, as Erin's talking about, to deal with it, right? Because you've saved energy, time, vitality in 80% of the deal. And now you're free to handle those, urgent things. And so that's how you prevent people on your team from burning out, right? Is if you help them prepare for the majority of the deal. And then the urgent, special things that come up per transaction are much more manageable. And so it's about having those workflows, having those buyer and seller checklists in place. Again, maybe not on paper, but a Google Doc, a Google Sheet, that's essential. That is where you should build out your system, your workflow to begin with, because then it can always be put in something, a new tech platform. It can always be put somewhere else. But we say if it works in a Google Doc or Google Sheet, it will work on another platform. So you do the intellectual labor upfront of what is my process, or we can help you with that through that journey. What is my process and who do I want to take care of executing those tasks. And then database, again, at this level, depending on how many contacts you have, whether you're farming or not, you might have it as a spreadsheet. As long as you have something, then you can always build into a bigger CRM. It might not make sense to have follow-up boss depending on a very small team, or if you work really mainly in Sphere. But as long as you have that information stored, like a column for the name, address, location, what they're looking for, last time you interacted with them, and some notes about them, then that saves you the brain space of having to remember that next time. Business tracking, again, spreadsheet, whatever tool will allow you to really understand what your business is trying to tell you, will empower you to make those decisions. And then support at this level, we mentioned having a transaction coordinator is one of the kind of classic, easiest ways to get leverage at this level, because that's part of the deal that can be outsourced. And it's tried and true, right? They're usually TCs will have a package fee because they know that they can offer this service at this rate and save you this number of hours, which you can then calculate. I can go spend prospecting, and what will that mean for me in terms of deals? So it's usually a no-brainer for the TC fee and leverage.
Yeah, and the thing that comes up for me as I hear you kind of describe this is that what it does is it takes the emotion out. And what I'm aware of is the only emotion in business that should be present is celebration.
That's
everything
great.
else is not needed and gets in the way.
Yeah, business is often counterintuitive to human nature and human instinct. And so we need to be able to take a step back and have tools that will run our business for us, that we implement, right? But that we're not always making a decision, because our decisions often come out of emotion.
Yeah, and it's interesting that we think that we're thinking beings that feel when we're really feeling beings that think. People will study, they'll gather all the information, they'll go online for 10 hours to try to save $5 on Amazon, and then they'll make an emotional decision. When it all comes down. Yeah, so it's what this does, the workflows, database, business tracking, whether that be like CTE or some program that you can track where the money's going and what's happening. Think about this, guys. If I walked into the CFO of a company and I said, hey, how much money have you made this quarter? And they're like, I don't know. Would that be acceptable?
No.
Completely not. Or let's say the opposite happened, where they had a really good quarter and I go to the CEO, I'm like, what'd you do with the money? Well, I went on vacation, I bought shoes, they would get fired immediately. The purpose of business, guys, is to make a profit. That's the whole goal. It's not to buy things that cause you to get significance from people that you don't give a shit about. It's to make profit. And with systems, you pull the emotion out, all that drama-fied nonsense. I would always love when people would be like, you're really hard to get on the phone, Aaron. I'm like, yes, by design. Because I don't have to listen to your bullshit questions about, well, how old is the roof? I don't know. Make an offer, do an inspection. I have no idea. Well, what do you think they'll take? The dumbest of all questions. I can't tell you that. You know that. So just make an offer, right? So these workflows and a database and business tracking and having support, they take the emotion out and allow you to systematize doing deals in high volume. If you want to do 50, 100, 150, 200 transactions, which I've done twice, you cannot not do this. It's not possible.
And it doesn't have to be painful, right? As soon as you get a good bookkeeper who can then connect the credit card and the bank account that you hopefully have set aside for your business only, right? Yes. And that pours into QuickBooks Online, and then they can tell you where it went. You can help them be able to categorize things, and then they give you a report every month, and you get to look at what's going on. And then you can give that to your CPA, who will then set you up on quarterly taxes so you can pay your taxes, because not all that money is yours. And one of the questions I have begun to ask people that I consult with is, I'm going to ask you a question you do not have to answer, but I would like to know, are you up to date with your taxes?
If you're just doing deals and not getting ahead, you might as well be doing something else. Okay? The whole point of this is to get ahead. And what Kathleen and Laura are doing, they're like the Michael Jordan of systems. You see how she flexed on you? She went through one thing, the next, and the next, and the next, and the next. She understands it, bro. You got to have those people. Look, Jerry's like, my feelings are hurt. You hurt my feelings. She said the T word. But wait a minute. You guys look like you're balling on Instagram.
Right. And I, unbeknownst to me, having coaching clients, right, for years, and I often work with people for years, right, because I'm a lifer. I love to stay with people and follow them and follow their success and be with them when it's challenging. And unbeknownst to me, because I didn't think to ask that question, I've had 3 clients, $250,000, $300,000, and $500,000 in tax debt. Well, I'm trying to help them build an organization. And I was like, why didn't you tell me this? I've been on the wrong side of the table with the IRS. It took time to get in. It took time to get out. But I'm a Girl Scout now. I am a Girl Scout. I have habits. I have good systems. It's all wonderful. I don't want to dance with the devil again. So it's okay if that's where you are, but let's get help for that. And let's change that so that that doesn't ever have to happen again, because we need people to fix the bridges and the roads. We have to pay our taxes. Right?
Well,
So,
and once you have money for taxes, we can talk to you about how to reduce that as much as possible. You know what I'm saying? Because I think I'm a better steward.
yeah, so you learn to be a good steward of your money, but it's okay if you just need some help getting these things set up, right? It's okay. And Sean asked, when do I work on this? And I wrote in the chat, after your prospecting, right? You plan time to work on your business as opposed to in the deals or in those sales generating activities. And then you put aside that time if you're an early morning or you're an afternoon person or whatever that might be, but preferably inside your work week, and that you're not stretching everything out to 7 days a week if you don't have to.
Prospecting, what's that?
Whatever that looks like for people.
We already hit him with the T word, Jose. Now you're going to hit him with the P word? Jeez, Louise.
So many pain points. Yeah.
That's too much pain. They're all going to leave at one time.
No, please don't. Right? It's okay.
We can talk about where we're going. That's a little bit more inspiring. Yeah.
To be able to level up your business, right? And what that looks like. And I just want to tell a quick story, because I know we're coming up on, we have like 10 minutes. But to be able to look at, we've worked with this incredible client, Latrice Williams, and in Spokane, Washington. And she is someone who not only was a fast producer early in her career, but then decided she wanted to have a brokerage. And this is a Black woman who had spent time in prison and then decided and got to be licensed, and then wanted to be able to have the diversity and inclusion in her business and give opportunity to other agents and families of all backgrounds an opportunity to be homeowners. And so we set up her brokerage with her in terms of systems. It was such an honor to be able to help someone who had so much heart for their business, wanted to make a difference in their community, but needed to set stuff up. And she knew how to be a top producer in her own right? She sold like 40 houses, and she was, early in her career, but to be able to then really make a difference, she needed to set some things up. To level up their business, right, is then depending on, well, where are you in what you want to be able to do? Oh, I should tell one more setup story, which is Paige. Mahoney, right? I always pronounce the accent incorrectly. Anyway, she used to be a doctor, and she became a real estate agent. And so she wanted to have a real estate business that set up a system so that she gave great care. And so, just like in the doctor's office, when you have an assessment, you've had questionnaires, they fill that out, they take their test, they then make a prescription, and then you get good care. So what was that going to be in her real estate business, right? So Laura and the team worked with her to what are all those steps that she wants and needs, and then add in her special sauce, right? So now in Level Up with the 4 components as well, Laura, talk to them about Tom.
All right. And I'll just add about Dr. Paige O'Mahony is that, we built this when her business was a little slower. She was just getting started. Yes. And it has taken off. And she said multiple times, the checklists save you. They save your life, right? Because she knows these deals would have gone off the rails by now if she didn't have this in place. And so this is an ideal time, if your business is slower, actually to put that structure in place, because it's hard to change the tires as you're going around around the track, right? And it can be done. It's just more painful because you have to slow down to speed up. And so why not do this when you're already a little bit slower? So then, Level Up Systems is really taking whatever you've built out in like a Google Doc or a Google Sheet and putting it in a platform where you can leverage automations, notifications, you can sync with your calendar so that everybody is managing their time in the most efficient way possible. And so you can just really, we can help you set it up, but I'm imagining a Trello, Asana, Basecamp, Monday, the number of different platforms platforms that can do this are, I mean, not infinite, but there are quite a few options. And we've seen a lot of people have success with Trello recently because it's very well organized for the operations team. So they like the flow of it. It's neat, clean with you assign people, you assign due dates, you can link documents. And for the agent who just wants to have a dashboard, quick view of where the different deals are in the pipeline, what got done and what didn't, it's really accessible. So that's one that we've been working with recently quite a bit. And then the same thing, the database Follow Up Boss would say is the number one that we've seen people enjoying. And so those two can be linked through automation, through integrations, or can be separate, but at least thinking of what the next step would be, it's helpful to build out in a platform that's really well established that other people are having good success with, because the support is there from the tech team, and that they're going to be always developing new integrations for the major players in the game. And then business tracking, CTE, is definitely our recommendation, at least at this phase of your business, if not every phase of your business, to get all those numbers. And same thing for the agents on your team, because at this point, you're growing, taking on buyer's agents, maybe other listing agents. You're going to need to be training them on your systems, and you're going to need them to perform, because we're not here to collect bodies, right? We're here to help people perform at their highest level. And so part of that is them knowing their numbers and knowing their numbers and being able to hold them accountable. And then support at this level, most classically, would be like a listing coordinator, listing and marketing coordinator, and marketing support, an assistant, and real estate admin for your team. Now we could talk about where we're headed, which is optimize.
Yes, but talk about Tom, who'd been in business for 20 years. He and his brother.
Okay, yes. So Tom, his father founded, so he's a level up. So his father founded the business 20 years ago, and he went to work for him. And his brother manages their property management company, and they're doing really well. They have a sustainable business, and they're able to sort of handle all the level of volume that they have. And they're imagining wanting a different life, a legacy business that they're able to step back from and sort of profit from this success that they've been building and all the hard work over the past 2 decades. And so we came in, we built out the Trello so that their TC and their admin will be able to offer a high level of support to their agents who come to the team. So that's a huge value add. They're also able to add agents from other markets, not just locally, because it's all done remotely on Trello at a distance. And so everybody knows what's happening for every deal. We set up the Google Drive, got everything in place so that agents, when they come on, they know this is a well-run system and they're set up for success. And so this is their path to being able to step back and really, grow the team and have the freedom that they want.
Yes, because at every level, no matter how many years you've been in the business, right? So we've worked with agents that have been in the business 25, 30 years, and they still sometimes didn't have checklists, or they were moving from one software to another. And so there's always going to be some new technology. There's always going to be sometimes some new shiny thing, which maybe you need, maybe you don't need. But to be able to know that you just want to know, is it as efficient as well? Because, layered through all that we're talking about with systems, I so encourage you to look at what are the values that you hold dear as a person and that you want to infuse into your business, your family, your organization. And I would encourage you to say that part of that is ease. This hustle grind culture that everything is hard and takes a lot of time. And if it doesn't, yeah, exactly, Sean, what's ease? We should be more familiar with it. Let's get to know it better. And so what is the ease in the process? And we also invite you to include your leverage, include your operations people, include your TC or your listing coordinator, whatever you have, into the creation of these processes, because they're going to do them. You're not going to do them. And so you then become the practice of what is the vision of the outcome that you want. And then what is the process and the system that gets in place in order to achieve that result? So you help cast that vision, but then they get to participate in what that looks like. Laura and I were in a meeting yesterday, and we were talking about our client onboarding. And part of what I said is I want it to have warmth. I want people to feel welcome and valued, because that is part of our secret sauce. We love you and we don't even know you yet. But we already love you, and we want you to have a wonderful life and great systems and ease and pleasure in your business and joy. And as Erin said, right, to have a celebration as the emotion that you use in your business. But that ease is possible so that you then also save your energy for when it really is hard and it really is difficult and it really needs to be negotiated. And you have to get strategic and creative about how to keep it together, put it together. That's where that energy goes. That energy doesn't have to be, and they didn't sign page 3, or, we can't find the keys, or no, we don't need to have energy for that. That is something that can have ease in its design.
And I'd love to think a little, or talk a little bit more also about hustle. And because we are all in favor of hard work, striving for excellence, being committed and dedicated, and pouring yourself into your service for your clients and your business. And it's more productive when that comes from a place of value, from a place of this is intentional, as opposed to a place of fear, right? Or I'm not worthy if I don't do this, or, I can't put food on the table if I don't do this. It's frenetic, it's frantic, it's not sustainable. And so those same behaviors that are providing success driven by fear can then be put into place driven by a positive motivator, and that how much more successful that is and sustainable.
Yes.
All right. So then we're at Optimize. Just really quickly, this is where we get to kind of integrate your tech stack. And we have a great resource for that, RealSync. And so you can set up lots of integrations, because at this point, you're handling so much volume. It really is essential to have those automations nailed down, that there's very little data entry, very little room for kind of mistakes in terms of typos and all of that, right? So you can have your platforms all talking to each other at this point as much as possible to gain a lot of efficiency. We also really like Sisu as a platform for where you could put your workflow in terms of your checklists, because then it's providing data to be able to track ROI. So it connects your CRM to your transaction management platform, and then produces all kinds of data about where you should be investing your time and your money. And then also has a dashboard for your team to show, who's totally killing it and who needs a little bit more encouragement. And so, at that point, that could be a good time to pull in that resource. And that can integrate with Follow Up Boss. And you can also use Trello for marketing. So there are all kinds of options for the how, the specificity of it. But just thinking long-term of where we're going can be helpful as you're choosing your platforms at different levels. And then support. This is really having a sales manager, a director of operations, a chief of staff, someone who can run the business, who has leadership skills, talented, loves this kind of work, and that you've built a relationship with and have trust, so that you can step back more easily.
And really have that time freedom, financial freedom, location freedom, so that you have an organization and a business that is being responsibly run. But yes, so those different levels of, so in the chat, different levels of proficiency that the different tech has, and you want to have enough tech for what you need, but not more tech. You don't want to necessarily put turbo in when you're not ready for it.
There's that fine line. It's a balance, right? You want it to be, you want to have structure but flexibility. You want it to have high performance, but you want it to be accessible. And so it's really about matching the tools with the level that you're at, how comfortable you are with tech, how comfortable your team is with tech, right? So the most essential piece is that you're going to use it and it's going to bring you value. And then after that, all the options are on the table.
Yeah, so it's like the first stage is systems, processes, and procedures and SOPs, which you can help people with.
Yes.
The next stage is what technology can I use to automate as much of that as possible.
Yes, absolutely. So that was the SOP part is really the how. So your process is what you do, and then your procedure is how you do it. So your standard operating procedure, the step-by-step instructions, could be a video, could be screenshots. That's our jam. We love putting those together with people to really nail down, what success looks like for that task. And we pull from Follow Up Boss or KV Core, whatever you use, and pull their training in also, so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel of how to add a contact to the CRM, but you might have a specific way you want a CMA done. And so we would record you and put the step-by-step instructions in place. So that how piece, the manual, is really essential as well.
Yeah, because a lot of agents think they have to train everyone. They have to talk about it because agents are talkers, right? They're not writers usually. And so, but you just talk once, get it recorded, get it on video, get it on audio, get a transcript, we turn it into a procedure. Your admin turns it into a procedure. So then you're also not held hostage by the leverage that you do hire because you need them to go on vacation. You need them to get promoted and go away. They have to move. Their husband got a better job. Like you're going to have turnover on your organization over the years. It's going to be okay, but you're going to still have a documented system that this is how my business runs. And then your heart and your sauce is in there so that other people can be an ambassador of your brand. But you don't have to do everything and you don't have to tell everyone everything. So we have a toolkit for you of listings and buyers from appointments through to post-closing. So if you would like that, put your email address in the chat and we will send that to you. We can make that available to Erin.
Yes, and I'll put the link in the chat as well.
There's a link where people can click on.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, absolutely. So I'll send
great.
them. They can sign up. Yeah.
Of course there is, Laura. If there wasn't a link, I'd be concerned. If there wasn't an SOP in a system, I'd be concerned.
There's a link. I'm going to pop that in. I'm going to take a minute right now to pop that in so everybody has that.
We'll drop that in the chat and then everybody should, without question, zero hesitation, don't pass go, don't collect $200, like take them up on that offer. It is very, very valuable that they will give you kind of a booklet with some SOPs and systems as far as each one of those. And then you can add your magic sauce to it, like whatever you want to personalize it. Let's see. Thank you, Laura and Kathleen. Look at all the love. Drop in the chat if that was fire, bro. Drop in the chat if that was helpful. There it is. Look at that link. There it is. Run to it. Click to it immediately, right away. Fire, fire, fire. Let's go. Let's go. Let's give them a lot of love and appreciation for sure. So
Thank you. I mean, it's obvious we love what we do and that we have a lot of heart for what we do. Right. Jose and I worked together. Oh, gosh, it's probably close to 10 years ago. Right. And look at the beauty that's happened in your career.
Yeah, it was with my very first assistant ever. And I made the leap to hire an assistant probably prematurely before I needed one. But I knew that I would eventually grow into it. And sure enough, as soon as I hired the assistant, it freed up a lot of time. And it allowed me to just focus on what produces income, which is talking to people.
Yes.
So even now, like I had an agent shadow me yesterday and she was like, I noticed that your phone's not ringing. And I'm like, yeah, it's meant to be that. It's designed to be that way. And basically, it was funny because when she came to shadow me, I told her it's actually going to be very simple. All I'm going to do all day is just talk to people. That's all I'm going to be doing. And that's literally all I did was just talk to people.
Yeah, it's funny, Jose, because I did give a presentation. This guy was in the front row and he was saying, he's like, initially I was very mad at you because I couldn't get a hold of you on one of your listings. I'm like, okay. And he's like, then I followed you online out of hate. Okay. Then I listened to what you were saying and I was like, holy smokes, this is good. I came to 2 more events and now he's partnered with us with EXP. So what I'm aware of is you have to have an open mind. I'm aware that systems are something that doesn't really get the attention that it deserves because it truly is the kind of backbone of the business. And without systems, you just have a job. I'm going to say that again. Without systems, you just have a job. You like to say things like, my business. That's not true. You have a job if you're running around doing all those things, right? So if you want to become a business owner, if you want to have time freedom, location freedom, that's what we're about here at Lead Builders. We only bring people to you that are world-class at what they do. You're looking at the Michael Jordan and the Kobe Bryant of systems. So reach out to them, take them up on that guidance. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and shift over and have a conversation about EXP, the model and the opportunity, which is perfect as it pertains to time freedom and location freedom and margin with time, energy, and money. Now, if that's not something you're interested in, it's cool. Look, we love you anyway. We hope you got tremendous amounts of value. We look forward to adding value to you in the future. I would propose that you stay for 2 reasons. The first one is the most expensive thing you can own is a closed mind. Mine was closed for a full year, and I appreciate my brother from another mother, Jose, continuing to pester me and ask me questions and push me to actually open my mind long enough to look at it. The second thing I would propose is that the way we see is actually not with our eyes. Our mind uses our eyes as a mechanism to see. So if my mind is blind to the possibility, my eyes will be blind to the opportunity. They will literally be right in front of me and I won't see it.
Fascinating.
So I encourage you, if you're on this call and maybe people have approached you about EXP, I'm sure somebody has, like, I just would suggest to you that you suspend for a moment whatever you think you know and open your mind just for a second. Because here's what I know is true. People that are smart, ambitious, and hardworking, once this is explained to them a way that's clear and concise that they can understand, once you see this, you cannot unsee it. So why is EXP the fastest growing real estate company of all time? They've gone from 20,000 agents to 90,000 agents in about 3 years. And why are all these very smart, ambitious, hardworking, top agents making the transition over to EXP? Why is that happening? Well, what if there was a way that you could get equity in the mothership, actually own something other than just your commissions, be compensated for bringing people to a company, and never pay for coaching again? Is that something you'd be interested in? If you're not already with EXP, drop in the chat if that sounds pretty dope, because it sounds pretty amazing to me. Okay. So here's the harsh reality of real estate. And me and Kathleen have had these conversations because, as you can tell, like, they really do have a heart for people. And the problem that me and her see coaching people from across the country is most agents are not planning for financial freedom. I remember being on mastermind calls, and I was usually the youngest person in the room. I said, guys, I don't mean this disrespectfully. If I am on this call in my 60s talking about contacts and knocking on doors, I fucked up. I did something wrong. Okay. And most agents are on a transaction treadmill, which is just deals. And they're so stuck in the short game that they're not thinking about long games. Okay. And they're not being coached on top of it. And the coaching that's being given is given by a middle manager who's never done more than 2 million in volume. And you give them 20% of your deals that's like going to a baker and ask them about jewelry. How are they possibly going to teach you to make $1 million a year when they've never done it? Ever. Okay, $1 million just for those who are counting are $83,333 a month. I've done the math.
And you've done it well too.
Oh yeah, I've done that.
Not only have you done the math, but you've done it
multiple times.
And so have I.
Just saying, I don't know who's counting. So the big challenges that we see, right, with regards to disruption. So what I'm aware of is we have all lived through massive disruption over the last 25 years. We just don't think about it. So I literally had to explain to my son what Blockbuster was the other day. Literally, like, no idea. Like, what is that, Dad? Like, what is that? And I remember specifically going into a Blockbuster and asking them what they thought about Netflix. I was just asking the person behind the counter, like, nah. But there's an underlying technology that is disrupting businesses. Okay, so Blockbuster went from being a $6 billion company to disappearing off the planet. Remember when I told you that your mind is what actually sees, not your eyes? And if my mind is blind to the possibility, my eyes will be blind to the opportunity. They didn't see the opportunity of streaming. And in fact, they were aggressively overconfident and filled with hubris that people would always want to pay $5 late fees. And now they disappeared off the planet. But here's the question. Drop in the chat. What was the technology that disrupted, that allowed that to happen? It's the internet. That's what allowed it to happen. I used to work at Circuit City. I'm dating myself. Okay. First sales job I ever had. Pretty dope. They taught me how to like sell the extra commission, the extra warranty. You got a little bonus, if you did that. They dominated the kind of, electronics game. And then Amazon comes along. And Amazon starts to sell electronics and Circuit City disappears off the planet. Do you guys remember? I remember walking into bookstores and there was a music department. Anybody remember that? And you'd be excited, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna look at books, maybe get a coffee, and go listen to my music. You put on your jams, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's good. I remember I walked in one of those places, I'm like, where the fuck did the music department go? Just disappeared. Like, I distinctly remember that feeling, being like, what just happened? Where'd it go? What caused that to happen? The internet. And the same thing is happening for traditional brokerage firms. Because here's what I need you guys to understand. You were all doing this model for a full year and you just didn't call it that. Between 2020 and 2021, nobody went to the office and it didn't matter. You did everything via text, everything via Zooms, and everything, if you had questions, you would just reach out to people. You guys were doing this for a whole year. You just didn't call it that. This is what the CEO of Netflix, of Blockbuster actually said out loud, and it's documented, and it didn't age very well. Neither Redbox or Netflix are even on our radar screens in terms of competition. Is that not the height of hubris? Being so overconfident? You know that the CEO of Netflix, Reed Hastings, tried to sell Netflix to Blockbuster not once, twice. Tracked him down at a ski lodge. You know how much he offered Netflix to him for? $50 million. Oh my God. They have like a fucking $300 billion valuation. It's like insane. He offered him for $50 million. Because remember, if my mind is blind to the possibility, my eyes will be blind to the opportunity. He had the opportunity of a lifetime. If he would have made that transaction, he would go down like Jack Welch and have books written about him. Instead, we look at him and be like, wow, Jim Keyes was pretty fucking wrong about that. That's like the dumbest thing he could have possibly done. Okay. So I remember when I was a kid, there was only two places we could stay if we went on a trip: at a friend's house or a hotel. Now you have short-term rentals and Airbnb. Airbnb has a bigger valuation than Hilton, and they own no real estate. What's the technology that's allowing that to happen? The internet. Do you see? That's what's taking place. We're watching it, we're living through it, and it's happening in our industry. And you have to ask yourself a question. Am I just going to watch and let everybody else just participate, just be a spectator, or am I going to be a part of that change? Because I came from a traditional brokerage firm. I own part of an office before I made this transition. Okay. And here's what traditional real estate is. You guys ready for this? It's feudalism. You have a king or a queen at the top. They go out and they sell a region for millions of dollars. Those regional owners go out and sell individual franchises, offices, market centers. Those local owners go out and recruit agents. Notice where the agents are in this feudalism chart. They're peasants. They work the land and they never own anything, and all the money funnels back up to the top. Guys, you guys settle for this. You ready? You know what you settle for? Look, you know what they gave me for making $1 million in a calendar year? Actual $1 million cash. Ready? Ta-da! Yay! And you guys go online and you're like, oh my God, I worked so hard for this. Oh, and you post it on Instagram. Yay! Yo, mine came with $8,000 in stock. What'd yours come with? Nothing. This is the traditional model of real estate that we've settled for. And if you're with a traditional brokerage firm, this is what it is. Okay. Now, another model came along and they're like, all right, well, maybe we could do this better. And it wasn't out of benevolence. It's because half the agents left one day, went across the street. And the owner of that company sat down with the rest of the agents, said, what do we need to do? We said, we need transparency, want to see the books, and want to share in the profit. Great. And that was revolutionary. Because before that, it was just straight feudalism, even though feudalism still exists today. But there was something that was better. So they went up to like 160, 170,000 agents. Fine. The problem with that, though, is it's based on businesses in the physical world. Ask yourself a question. With what happened with COVID, which business would you want to own in 2023 moving forward? One that has 900 offices in the physical world with $50,000 a month in expenses, or one that has none? And if that model of profit sharing, you have to get through $50,000 a month of expenses, which means there's not that much profit, which means there's not that much profit sharing going on.
How many properties does Airbnb own?
None. Zero. Zip. Zilch. Guys, it's the same thing. Look, we even got Dr. Laura to go, oh, that is true. Wow. They own no properties, guys. Zero. Why is it so hard for you to think about real estate without a physical office that you go to eat donuts and talk shit? Because nothing happens there. By the way, they got to beg, borrow, and steal to get you to come. They got to give raffles and cakes and pies just to get you to show up. It's antiquated, guys. We don't live in that world anymore. And you proved it because in 2020, 2021, none of you went to the office and it didn't matter. So here's what EXP does. EXP cuts out the region. They cut out the regional owner, the kind of local owner. They cut out all the staff, those people that aren't really adding too much value, and they make the agents the owners. Guys, EXP is an S&P 600 company. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the S&P 500, the 500 largest large cap companies in the United States. S&P 600 is the 600 largest mid cap companies in the United States. You can't buy your way into that. You can't politic your way into that. That is based on business metrics. It's a self-cleansing mechanism. People don't fit the criteria anymore. They kick them out and bring new ones in. Last month, we were invited to the S&P 600. We have $150 million in the bank, zero debt, and the stock pays a dividend. And 70% of all of the equity is owned by agents and the founders of the company.
Which means we don't have somebody else controlling what decisions the company makes, meaning it's not owned by some investors in China or different areas, basically, that have to make a profit, basically.
Agreed. And ask yourself a question. At the end of your working year, what do you have to show for it other than pieces of plastic and a hat and maybe a party where they have hot dogs and hamburgers? Like, guys, it's comical what we settle for. It's ridiculous. Okay. Where here you get equity and you get and you're an owner, like, immediately, and you get compensated like an owner to help the company build. So they get rid of all these regional owners, the individual local franchise owners, all the staff that are in those buildings that aren't doing too much, and the agent becomes the owner. You get lead generation, technology, training, health insurance, stock awards, revenue share, and collaboration. Other than that, I wonder why 90,000 agents have made this decision. I wonder why they went from 20,000 to 90,000 in such a short period of time. Okay. Now, if you're taking notes, I want you to really get clear, because this whole conversation around systems, the core of it is because I want everybody on this call to have margin in their life. Because without margin, your life won't be good. Period. Your relationships won't be good. And that's like the underbelly of this industry. Traditional success is working 70, 80 hours a week, getting divorced 2 times, having somebody else raise your kids across the country. Like, that's what it is. And nobody talks about it. Instead, we just put people on stage like, oh, you made $1 million, good for you. Oh yeah, but your life is shitty and your relationships are bad and your health is poor. Like, our metrics are screwed up. And you're never going to get rich renting out your time. Never. You only get rich by owning equity. I need to pound that into your brain, guys. You never get rich renting out your time. You must own equity in the mothership. You must have upside in the business. Now, the question is if you're not with EXP, do you have any upside? Here's the question to ask yourself. How many deals would you have to do in order to become an owner in the mothership of your company? Is it even possible? And the answer, you're probably sitting there like, well, and if you have to go like this, well, that means it doesn't exist. So you're just renting time. You're never going to get rich doing that. Okay. So what the model does is the brokerage is in the cloud. Okay. And it eliminates all of the monthly expenses. And what that allows them to do is redistribute revenue to us, the owners. Right? It's just a different model. It's a different way of doing things. You know, I'm sure when the automobile came out, they're like, nah, we're always going to have horses. Because we resist change, guys. That's what it is. But in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king and the one-eyed woman is queen. If I can see what is while everybody else is running around blind, it's a very, very deep competitive advantage.
Not only that, but when they asked people what they needed back then, they didn't say a car. They said they needed a faster horse.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And that's like agents telling me, well, like going to the office, like hanging out with people. Do you want to hang out with people or make money, man? What do you want? You can hang out with people on your own time. Like go join a bowling league. Like I don't know what to tell you. All right. So, and the deal is leverage is what creates margin. And there's different forms of leverage. There's the leverage of labor, which Kathleen and Dr. Laura were talking about, which is where you have people and staff that work SOPs that you've created. Then there's a leverage of capital, which is where you have capital or money that works for you. Right? Me and Jose have invested a bunch of money in real estate, whether it be physical properties or syndications, in order to have cash flow. Then there's the leverage of content. Why do you think you see me and Jose banging on social media so much? because it has no geographic borders or boundaries and works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the audience keeps compounding and getting bigger over time. Then there's a leverage of code, which is software. And I want you guys to understand all brokerage firms are platforms to process transactions. That's all they are. And what is behind it is this rah, sis, boom, bam, we're a family and hold hands. But underneath what's really going on, it's just a platform to process transactions. That's it. And the reason why EXP is so high up the opportunity ladder is because it's just software that people can plug into anywhere on planet Earth to process their transactions. And in order to plug in, it only costs $150 and $85 a month. How can they compete with that? The truth is they can't. That's why those legacy companies are hemorrhaging money and EXP is profitable, even when the marketplace is challenging. It's a model shift, guys. We're living through it. Okay. But we don't live in a world of haves and have-nots. We don't live in a world of rich and poor. We live in a world of people who have leverage and people who don't. Listen to what I'm saying to you. When I heard, look, I even got Dr. Laura like, dang, bro, this guy's good. Like when I heard that, Dr. Laura, my brain exploded. I was like, oh my God, that is true. First person I thought about is somebody in my life who's very close to me. He's a furniture repairman. He has no leverage of labor, no leverage of capital, no leverage of content, no leverage of software. His life is becoming increasingly more difficult as time progresses. And he's a great person. He's a good dude. But business is intellectual warfare. We don't live in a world of people, rich and poor. We live in a world of people who have leverage and people who don't. Ask yourself a question. Is your current company providing you an ecosystem and a platform to give you leverage? Or do they put things in place in your contract to keep you stuck forever? Oh, we're a family. Really? Do family treat each other that way? Do I keep all your pendings when you leave if we're family? Do I keep all your listings if you leave if we're... Guys, wake up. Stop being immature. Okay? You're somebody else's leverage. Now, the reason why we're so excited about this opportunity is the innovation curve. Because when something's new, right, there's a curve of adoption. Just like when horses came out, everybody's like, nah, we're always going to have, I mean, the cars, everybody's like, nah, we're always going to have horses. Well, there was an adoption stage. And at first, there's the innovators. They see it first. Oh, yeah, this totally makes sense. And they do it right away. It's only 2.5% of the growth curve. Then you have the early adopters. Early adopters have a high tolerance for risk. So like, yeah, that sounds good. Let's write a roll. Boom. Cool. That's some of our upline at EXP who has 6,000 agents now. Then you have the early majority. Those people have a lower tolerance for risk. They need more people to do it in order to feel safe. Then you end up with the late majority. They have FOMO. They feel like they're missing out. Then you end up with the laggards. They still have flip phones and use AOL Instant Messenger. And I'm sure you get those clients. They're like, yeah, my AOL email address. I'm like, okay, I know how old you are, right?
In paper. They're still using paper.
Oh, we got Dr. Laura ripping on you. She was trying to be kind before. Now she's letting it rip. That's the way to do it. So the reason why we're so excited about this opportunity, guys, is I firmly believe with every fiber in my being and the way I know the sky is blue and the grass is green, we are just entering into the early majority of this opportunity. Enough people have done this where it's perceived to be safe. Enough top producers, enough smart business people have done this. It's perceived to be safe, and we're about to experience an avalanche. And here's what I need you to know and understand is if you follow a wave, a tsunami, you can do more in 3-5 years of a working career than you could in a whole lifetime because you have the power of the tsunami behind you. I think in the next 10 years, we're going to have 50% of all agents are going to be with cloud-based brokerages, which means EXP could go to 400,000, which means we're only 20% of what our full capacity is. That's unbelievable. That's why me and Jose are so excited.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this you? Okay. Just going to be you? Those people are like, I love, open house. I'm like, that's disgusting. You haven't hung around enough people. Okay. They don't have a plan. No retirement plan. Just, I plan on doing this forever. This comes from Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant. These are the way people earn income. Okay. There's E's and S's. Those are on the left side of the quadrant. They are the highest taxed. Okay. Lowest amounts of freedom, typically, and options and choices. The B's and I's are business owners. They own a system. Right. Self-employed people usually work the system. or they are the system. Business owners own the system that other people work. And then I's are investors, which is money works for them. 95% of the population earns income on the E and the S side, which is the highest tax with the least amount of options and choices. Only 5% owns it on the B and I. What this model does is instantaneously turn you into a business owner because you own part of the mothership and also an investor. So it increases your leverage, moving you towards the right side of the quadrant. So the question to ask yourself is like, all right, what's my I'm done number? Okay. And people throw these numbers out because I think social media and money, and like people don't do the math. They don't think. They're like, yeah, I want $10,000 a month in residual income. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, let's do the math on that. You would have to have $2.4 million invested at 5%.
Which means you have to make 4.8 after taxes and expenses.
And if you live in California, like Jose, you got to make $6 million. Because they keep 55% like cents of every dollar you earn. You see what I'm saying? So they don't like, we don't do the math on this, guys. It's like this, like out in the like amorphous kind of thought, and you say it, but I need you to understand, saying something creates endorphins as though you've done it. Don't fall into that trap. Just because you say you want 10,000 out loud makes you feel good is horseshit about you actually doing it.
Not only
I need to be like intentional. So the people that me and Jose know, or the fact that we've created financial freedom and independence, we didn't step in shit one day. It's very intentional and thought out, like very planned out, very specific, and I'm very clear. Go ahead, Jose.
not only that, but like if you don't do the math, you don't actually have a plan to get to where you want to go. The first is knowing what you have to do. So I ask these people all the time, like, how much do you want to earn? They say something like $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month. And then I ask them, how much would you have to earn, or how much would you have to invest? And I get a deer in the headlights type of look, like zero idea as to how much money, energy, resources would have to go into that.
Agreed. So if you do the math, and then what you can start to do, if you really want to get into this, and you'll notice the energy in the room go like, boo, is of that 2.4 million, how much do you have currently? And how much would you have to save in order to get there? And let's say you want to get there in 20 years. So how much would you have to save per year in order to get you that goal and objective? These are things we have to think about, because if you're expecting, I mean, what is the max on Social Security? Like $3,500 a month, $4,000 a month? What is that going to do, bro? It doesn't even pay your rent. Sorry. M's the facts. Okay. So now my intention in showing you this is not to brag or boast. My intention in showing you this is the power of this opportunity, because not only will EXP treat us like owners and give us ownership in the mothership where we have equity, like real actual equity in the company, but they also, when we invite people to the company and they join, they have said to us, we're going to follow the same plan that YouTube follows. So everybody's very familiar with YouTube. YouTube has a revenue share component, which is that if you can keep people on the platform and you fit the following criteria, you have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time, they will give you half the revenue that they generate from ads on your content. That's called revenue sharing. And it caused them to become the second largest search engine in the world. First largest is Google, and Google bought YouTube. Now, let me ask you a question. Is that a scam? No, that's a business model called revenue sharing that's existed for, I don't know, 15, 20 years and made YouTube a huge company. They don't even put their earnings out. And when they did once, everybody was like, oh my God, they made $15 billion, like insane amounts of money, right? EXP says the same thing. If you bring people to our platform, remember, brokerages are just platforms to process transactions. If you bring people to our platform and they are productive, they do deals, we will give you a portion of the revenue that they send back to us towards their cap. Revenue sharing. Okay. So what go ahead, Jose.
It was funny because I was watching this YouTube video, and they talked about how other platforms, like I think there's a platform called Kick, they do 95% to their creators of the revenue.
Wow.
That's when it clicked for me, when I said, YouTube is not the only person with this model, meaning EXPs like didn't just come up with this idea out of thin air. They looked at what direction everything was headed and said, oh, look, social media companies are giving revenue to the creators, which keeps people on the platform, which keeps us growing, which is the same thing that agents do. Agents bring people to the company, which helps the company grow. Hence, let's reward them for them to bring on more agents to the company.
Exactly right. And it's a mechanism for growth. And it's also a compensation plan that puts us in alignment as owners. That's what it does. And I believe in an environment where corporations have moved so far away from that. It used to be like, yeah, if you work for us for like 30 years, we buy you a watch, Dr. Laura, at the end, and you get a pension for the rest of your life. And then the 401k plan came up and they were like, oh shit, we don't have to pay for this stuff ourselves. We're going to push that off to them. Now it's a contribution plan. It's based on what you contribute. And it doesn't guarantee you're going to get one amount for the rest of your life. And the way corporations treat you is like, yeah, we'll have you work 35 hours a week because we don't want to pay you, like full benefits and all this other stuff. Compensation plans that align ownership with the people that are working, I think are the way. I mean, it's the way of the future. And the companies who understand that and get that, they're exploding. So what you're looking at here is a screenshot of my revenue share. So I've been with the company for 14 months. This is what's cool is every time we do these slides, even though they're a week away, it's old because I'm currently at 157. This shows 145. Revenue share this month was $14,230. So I need you guys to understand, in order for me to receive that in residual income, I would have to invest $2.6 million at 6%. That is unbelievable. I've invested millions of dollars, about $2 million in syndication real estate in order to receive $8,500 a month. This is almost twice as big as that in 14 months with no money. Because it's so high up the opportunity ladder and because it has a compounding component. Now, agents say to me, well, I don't want to invite agents to stuff. I'm like, so don't. Like, that's fine. If you don't, I'm just aware that it's available to you. And all you have to do is get really good at inviting stuff, because as you can tell, we add crazy amounts of value. And then it's just a matter of time once they get into the ecosystem. Now, here's one of our senior partners. Oh, Lars, that scale, which think about how awesome this is. Lars isn't here. And think about the leverage. We've talked about his book and now we're talking about him here. It's fantastic. So he is a partner of ours. He's a senior partner, right? And Lars has been with the company for 2.5 years. This slide is maybe 6 months old. So he has 1,500 agents in his organization. And that number you see there is accurate. Now, I know when people see those numbers, they don't compute. He made $85,000 in a month in Ripshare. Yeah. But like, think about it. YouTube has made 15-year-olds millionaires because they, put pies in their face and do silly shit. Like, that's what revenue share does, guys. Right? And you would think that when me and Jose show people these numbers, you leap out of your seat and you're like, let's go. That's not what happens. Instead, what happens is that we watch them go in their head and tell themselves all the reasons why they couldn't do it. I'm not fast enough. I'm not quick enough. I'm not strong enough. Like, blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, I mean, that's something you can do, but I'm also aware that the opportunity is there.
Or they'll go back to their broker, which the same thing happened to me. And my broker said, oh, look, you're going to go to a no-name broker. Like, nobody's going to want to do business with you anymore because you're with a company that doesn't have a brand name.
Yeah.
False. I actually produced more the year after I moved to EXP than I did with the previous company.
Guys, people usually want the version of you that serves them best.
Ooh.
People usually want the version of you that serves them best. And the other thing that's true is most people are cool with you thinking independently, as long as at the culmination of your thinking, you came to the same conclusion they did. So this is about like stepping into being an owner, not being a peasant, not settling for crumbs or little piece of plastic or hats.
It adds margin too. Like, so for example, like, where is Lars in right now? Like, he is not here and he is benefiting from this presentation.
And this conversation.
That's the type of leverage that this opportunity provides.
Agreed. So now the second thing is, like, when agents say to us, they're like, I don't want to do the attraction thing. Like, fine, don't. It's cool if you don't. All you got to do is invite people to stuff and we'll help you build in spite of yourself. Because my goal and objective is to help 100 people to become truly financially free and independent. That's my goal and objective. So if you want to be one of those people, great. If not, that's cool too. Now, if you just want to do deals, remember I told you about that equity plan? where you actually can own part of the mothership. Well, like major corporations, what EXP does is they reward top performers with stock in the company. Grants, like real corporations, like a real boy and girl, okay? With grants of stock in the company for performance. So they give you 6 different ways that you can earn equity. If you sell your first property in a calendar year, which resets every year, you get $200 in equity. If you bring somebody to the company when they sell their first property, happens once, you get $400 in equity. When you cap, you get $300 in equity. If you do 80,000 in commissions plus 20 deals on top, they'll give you $8,000 in stock every single year that you do that, half of your $16,000 cap. If you do 80,000 in commissions plus 20 deals on top, you go to 2 EXP events a year and you teach some classes in their metaverse, they will give you the full $16,000 back in stock every single year that you do that. Guys, I was with the company for 15 years, top agent, owned part of the office. When I left that company, how much money do you think I left with? Nothing. Wait. Ta-da!
Aaron, go try to buy some groceries with that.
I know. I'll go there with a smile, be like, hey, you guys take this? Like, I don't know. So what I'm showing you, what's on my screen, I've been with the company 14 months. I did the 80,000 in commissions, plus I did 20 deals on top. So I received the $8,000 award. I've had partners that have sold property. So I got the $400 award. So currently, the value of the stock that I've received in awards is $30,000 because the stock went from $11 a share to $22 a share, being included into the S&P 600 helped with that. My cap is $16,000. Guys, you're at companies where the more deals you do, the more you pay them. Here, the more deals you do, the more they pay you. Which would you rather be with? Okay. Publicly traded on the S&P 600. So they're the 600 top mid-cap companies in the United States. Now, they also allow you to use 5% of your commissions to buy stock at a 10% discount. Guys, that's what real corporations do. If you work for Nike, you work for like Goldman Sachs, they allow you to buy stock at a discount. It's part of the benefits of working for the company. EXP does the same thing. I've been doing that. That's currently worth $37,000. Guys, look at this, $70,000. Guys, the average age in the United States makes $75,000 a year, $21 an hour. The average manager at Taco Bell makes $20 an hour. I have been received more in stock than most agents make all year long. But I like my pieces of plastic and we're family.
Until
you tell them you're going somewhere else, and you'll find out real quick that was not the relationship you thought it was. So for the agents who are saying to me, like, look, I don't want to do the trip, fine. I'll help you grow in spite of yourself. Just invite people to stuff. But look at this, guys. This is real, tangible money. And at the end of your working career, what are you going to have to show? You realize if I'd been doing this for 15 years, I'd have over $1 million in equity. But instead,
not only that, but you also have to ask yourself, Aaron, you have to ask yourself, okay, what's going to be easier? Like if I want to be able to retire in 10, 20 years, is it going to be easier for me to make $6 million selling real estate, be very frugal, pay my taxes, pay my expenses, and invest all of it into a syndication that pays 6%? Or is it going to be easier for me to continue selling real estate, build relationships with other agents, and invite them to join the company? What's going to be easier?
That's exactly right. And then the other thing to think about too is that because people
or
are like,
both.
Yeah,
you can do both. They're not mutually exclusive. You can continue to do both. You can grow the business, invest in syndications, which that's what I've done, or do the revenue share. Compound double as fast.
Yeah, and what I'm doing is both. That's exactly right. So because they're both forms of leverage. It's just that one is a higher form of leverage than the other. Now, what I'm also aware of is like in the short term, because people say to me when I tell them about the equity, they're like, well, past performance is a good indicator of future results. I'm like, okay, fine. In the short term, the stock market is a voting machine. I think. You know what it is in the long term? A weighing machine. What's actually worth something? Who's actually making money? So I want to show you the following slides. If you had invested $100,000 in Remax 5 years ago, it's currently worth $34,000. if you had invested $100,000 in, hold on, jumping ahead. If you had invested $100,000 in House, that is Caldwell Banker, Century 21, Better Homes and Gardens, it's currently worth $29,000. If you would invested $100,000 in EXP, it's currently worth $397,000 5 years later. Guys, remember how we said emotions trump facts? These are facts. Like, go look up the tickers. Like, you can't not, we're not making this up.
Not only that, Aaron, but I saw a slide recently where the reason the stock has been going up or down is because a lot of the companies where the stock is going down are negative in terms of cash flow, meaning they're losing.
Oh, they're hemorrhaging money.
Which means if they're losing money, something's going to have to change in terms of the compensation model, which is why you see a lot of the fees starting to go up for other companies. So they can't lose money forever. That just can't happen. So something has to change.
Yeah, or they do like what Compass did, and they borrow like $1 billion and burn through it in 2 years. So like, yeah, you're exactly right, which is like what's going on underneath. That's why you see the fees going up, is because they're burning through, they're hemorrhaging money. They're actually losing money per transaction. Okay. And it's because of the shift in the model, DC. I'm curious, do you think the person who was like really into horses held on to the end? Probably. Right? Went down with the ship as though that's like noble. So like Jose was saying, what do you think is easier? 4.8 to 7.2 million dollars in the next 20 or 30 years that you would gross, or you attract 10 to 15 agents in the next 2 or 3 years? Which do you think seems more reasonable and doable, particularly when you have partners like us? So what comes with partnership? What do you get? Because anybody can provide you access to the brokerage firm. The question is, what are you getting above and beyond just access to the brokerage firm? Well, what you get is, I have a coaching company with 100 paid coaching clients. 12 of them make over $1 million a year. 75% of all of the coaching and training I provide becomes free to our partners and anybody that they partner with. So I do a group call once a week with me personally from someone who's actually sold 2,000 homes in their career. And 80% of that business was listings sold. So
wait, it's not the manager that's only sold $2 million worth of real estate?
It's a little bit better than that. Yeah. So, and it's agents pay $250 a month to be on that call once a week for an hour, who aren't partnered with us. But if you partner with us, it's free. It's free to you and anybody that you bring to the company. Okay. We have 2 separate role play groups, because one of the challenges for agents is knowing what to say and how to say it, because the people change, the houses change, the situations change within certain variables, but the conversation never doesn't. It's always the same. Never heard of your company. My sister's an agent. Your commission's too high. What are you going to do to market the home? Like, it's the same. Like Dr. Laura was saying, it's the same every single time. So it's impossible to get really good at something you don't do all the time. And what I did at the beginning of my career is I role played twice a day, 6 days a week for 3 years. Hand wrote out scripts. I videotaped myself doing presentations, because I never wanted that to be a reason why I wasn't able to take advantage of an opportunity, because there is no security in this business, only opportunities. Okay. So we have a role play group that simulates what I did, which is, it gives you 2 role play partners, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. In the morning is for setting appointments, and the afternoon is just for the listing presentation. Agents pay $1,000 for the year to be in those groups. And if you partner with us, it's free to you and anybody that you bring to the company. I have 2 separate mastermind groups. One for agents that do $250 to $500 in gross commissions. Agents pay $400 a month to be on that call. It becomes free to you and free to anybody you bring to the company. We have a separate mastermind group called the Freedom Builders, which Jose is in. You have to make $750,000 a year or more to be on that group. Access to that group becomes free to you once you fit the criteria. Okay. Now, anybody that I have proximity to and Jose has proximity to, you immediately have proximity to. So Jose, you can talk about what you're offering as far as the value stack.
Yeah. So I did something pretty unique, maybe like 5 to 7 years ago. Is I started recording a lot of my conversations that I was having in real estate. So I recorded my conversations with expired listings. I recorded my conversations with for sale by owners. I recorded for rent by owners, probates, listing presentations, buyers consultations. There's thousands of hours of recording. So like, for example, let's say you want to talk to an expired but have no idea what to say. You literally go on the university, go on the expired section, click on one button. You get to hear one of the best expired calls that you're ever going to hear, because it's by somebody that is taking hundreds of expired listings in their career and somebody that has converted. You want to target a new lead source. You're like, hey, look, I want to diversify my business. I want to start targeting probates. Go on the probate section, click on the probate call, and you get to listen to a live probate conversation and get to hear exactly what to say. You want to practice your listing presentation, go right to the listing presentation and folder and basically get to listen to it right on the spot. The other thing is I have a private mastermind where we generally charge $250 to be on. It's a Friday call, happens at 12 o'clock. You get access to it 100%, where I share with you exactly what is working in my business and what I've done to basically grow it to the level that it's at. We can go over anything social media related. We can go over anything that is real estate related. We can go over investments as well too, which in social media, I probably have over 500,000 followers, 400,000 followers combined through all the platforms. Real estate investments, I have $15 million worth of owned real estate, and real estate sales, we've grossed over $1.7 million for the last 7 years in a row, basically.
Hey, that makes you even more cute, bro.
So that's what you guys get access to. You guys get access once again to a mentor that can teach you stuff, who's actually doing it. So if you want to learn social media, come on, ask me what I've done to grow it. Guess what, guys? All of this stuff hasn't happened by chance. I didn't just like open a door and say, hey, I'm going to do this. Everything was very strategic, precise, and there was an actual formula to do it. And the good thing about this formula is I can teach it to you guys as well too.
Love it.
And it's free.
And it's free. If it's free, it's for me. It's exactly right, because the economic model allows us to open up the playbook. And as Dr. Laura just said, modeling is the best way to learn. You find somebody who's doing what you're doing, and then you just copy them. That's it. So, and then the third part of the value stack is Lars. So we've mentioned Lars a few times. Lars was a top agent with a particular company at 2.6 million in gross commissions. He only worked in that business 50 days a year. So Lars is the king of scaling. And he has an online platform called Real Estate B School that he gives people access to. It's a very robust university, all the systems, all the processes, all the procedures. He charges agents $900 a month to have access to it. And it becomes free to you and free to anybody that you bring to the company. So we've been very, very intentional and purposeful about creating a value stack where we can give you access to multi-millionaires in the real estate space, who between them have, 6,000 transactions that you would normally have to pay thousands of dollars a month for that coaching and training. And we can offer to you for absolutely free. Okay. Which is fantastic. So I'm imagining now you're beginning to see why people like you are hiring us all the time to help them. So if you're somebody who, one of two things happen when we get to this point in the conversation, okay? One is people say, holy smokes, like that makes total sense to me. I love the idea of having equity and ownership. I love the idea of being compensated like an owner when I invite people to the company, or if they decide to come and, I'm the reason why they came. I love the idea of all of this proximity, because guys, proximity is power. When I met Jose, he was not doing the deals he was doing. He hounded me for a year to get into my role play group. Once he got into role playing with me, he started to, jump up, and then now he sells what he does, right? And that's not me bragging or boasting, it's just true. So proximity is power. So I love all the proximity that I get. I love the synergy. I love the collaboration. I am ready to begin onboarding right now. If that is you, okay? If somebody invited you to this call them right away. Tell them, hey, I'm ready to start onboarding, and we'll get you going. Now, other people, what they say is like, well, all this makes sense. I need to maybe watch video, talk to my significant other, pray about it. Whatever you decide is okay. We'll love and support you either way. The question to be asking yourself right now is, what would be a next step that you would feel comfortable with? Because the time to act is when the emotion is high and everything makes sense. Because otherwise what you end up with is the law of diminishing intent. Every 24 hours that go by and you don't take action, the probability that you will gets less and less and less. I just don't want to see you get left behind. I don't want to see you guys have the opportunity of literally a lifetime as far as wealth accumulation at your disposal. And, you just pass it by and say, I'll look at it at some other time. Now, if somebody didn't invite you or whatever, you want to have a conversation with me, I just put up my QR code. You could book a call with me and we can have a conversation. But with that, we want to say thank you kindly for the time that you took. We hope you guys got, again, tremendous amounts of value from Dr. Laura and from Kathleen. Jose, I love you, brother. And let's go, let's grow. We look forward to the opportunity to be of assistance and to add value for you and your real estate and your families in the future.
Thank you, guys. And from the bottom of our heart, we know we can help you. All we need is the opportunity. And thank you to Kathleen and Dr. Laura Sims as well.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Right.
Pleasure. Great to be with you. Thanks for all you do for your communities.
Yeah, this was fun. I know I had a good time, and I just want to bring us out because I know that the energy with which we learn information is tied to the information. Oh, Dr. Laura knows Jay-Z. She's like,
You're pulling out all my favorites. I'm a Tar Heel. I did my PhD at UNC. Michael Jordan reference. I was like, that's it.
so listen,
Get much better than that.
go have an amazing rest of the day on purpose, guys. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Hold on. I want to show the Rolly, Aaron.
He wasn't in a fucking Rolly. That's for rich people, not for us.